Hey everyone, tonight we tumble headfirst into the dusty, suspiciously damp, and hilariously dangerous world of medieval survival, where drinking water might kill you faster than a sword, and sleeping outside means you're basically a snack with a heartbeat. Welcome to a place where common sense is rare, coyotes have meal plans, and even your own horse might be plotting against you. So before we dive into boiling puddles and cursed blankets, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if this chaotic corner of history makes you laugh, wince, or reconsider ever going camping again. Drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Seriously, I love seeing which brave souls are staying up for dry history for sleep. Now, get comfy, fluff that pillow, and maybe keep one eye open. Because tonight's tale begins with a bucket of water, a suspicious look, and a man who definitely regrets wearing clean clothes. Let's begin. Your shirt will kill you. Welcome to the American Wild West, where the sky is wide, the dust is eternal, and your sense of style is the fastest way to get shot before lunch. Now, let's get one thing straight. This isn't Paris, this isn't Milan, and this sure as hell isn't your Sunday brunch with mother. This is a lawless, sunburned sandbox filled with men who mistake politeness for weakness and fashion for a death wish. If you're rolling into town wearing a clean, white, tucked-in shirt with brass buttons and the faint scent of rose water, congratulations. You've just painted a giant target on your chest. Around here, white clothes don't say, "I'm refined." They scream, "Rob me. I'm soft, like a muffin on a bar stool." And unless your goal is to get mistaken for a tax collector or a preacher with zero backup, it's time to get dirty. Fast. You want to survive? Dress like you've already been mugged, punched, and maybe trampled by a confused mule. Torn sleeves? Bonus. Stains? Encouraged. Mysterious patches you don't want to talk about? Now you're speaking the local language. If your coat doesn't smell faintly of gunpowder, old tobacco, and something no one dares to identify, you're either a banker or someone about to be buried by one. Let's talk color palette. If you're out here thinking a bright blue vest with gold trim is going to earn you style points, you are approximately 10 seconds away from being shot by a man who hates flair. The only safe colors are what we like to call post-apocalyptic prairie tones: brown, gray, dust-stained beige, and dried blood maroon. Anything that looks like it's been washed by a sandstorm and bleached by regret. If your outfit matches a rattlesnake's belly, you're doing it right. Let's move on to the boots. In the civilized world, shiny boots mean wealth and taste. In the Wild West, shiny boots mean your ankles are so fresh they probably squeak. The moment someone sees a reflection in your footwear, they're either going to rob you, laugh at you, or offer to trade them for a bag of beans and a slap. Real survivors wear boots so scuffed and cracked they might legally qualify as fossils. If one of your boots has a hole, good. It means you've walked through enough hell to be taken seriously. And then there's the hat. You absolutely need a hat. Not for shade, not for sunstroke prevention, but because hats are your personality here. Pick the wrong one, and you're sending a message you can't take back. A hat that's too tall says you're trying too hard, probably compensating for something, and nobody wants to know what. A hat that's too small? That says you got lost on your way to kindergarten and accidentally wandered into a gunfight. What you want is a brim that's been through wind, rain, fistfights, and existential dread. Something with a bend that suggests you've seen things, and most of them weren't good. If your hat could talk, it should say, "I've buried better men than you." If your hat looks like it belongs to a magician on a stagecoach, burn it, and start over. Accessories? Oh yes, they matter. Just don't go full Victorian peacock. A bandana is good, but only if it looks like you used it to filter muddy horse water, not like you tied it while reciting poetry about your feelings. Tie it loose, low, and frayed at the edges. You want people to think you picked it up off a dead guy and never looked back. And don't forget, rust is your friend. A rusty knife, a rusty flask, a rusty spur. These are all social currency. They tell people you've either survived a lot or given up entirely. Either way, that earns respect. If your accessories don't make a tetanus shot seem like a good idea, you're not accessorizing hard enough. The trick is to look like someone who's just come back from burying a friend in the desert and didn't have time to change. You want to look haunted but functional, grizzled but mobile. Your expression should say, "Yes, I've slept in a barn. Yes, I liked it. No, I don't want to talk about it." This entire aesthetic serves one purpose: camouflage. In the Wild West, looking important is fatal. If you walk into a saloon looking like a man with clean fingernails and decent posture, someone will assume you have money. Or worse, morals. Both of these are unacceptable. Now let's talk about posture. Stand too tall and you look arrogant. Slouch too much and you look weak. The ideal stance is, "I'm not here for trouble, but I've definitely seen some." Hands loose, eyes wary, and never, under any circumstances, should you strut. Strutting is for chickens. And chickens get eaten. Let's review some outfits you might consider and why they'll get you killed. The banker look: fresh vest, gold pocket watch, neatly pressed trousers. Verdict: dead in 5 minutes. Shot twice, once for the watch, once for the arrogance. The sheriff cosplay: polished badge, tailored coat, fancy boots. Verdict: mistaken for lawman. Shot once by criminals, then again by people who hate lawmen. The Eastern gentleman: bow tie, cane, monocle. Verdict: don't even bother unpacking. You'll be stripped, robbed, and possibly used as a bar stool before sundown. Now here's the winning look: the veteran wanderer. Dusty coat with one sleeve half torn. Shirt is technically white, but now a soft shade of regret. Boots older than the sheriff's horse. Hat wide, crooked, and sun-bleached. One spur missing. Bandana looks like it survived a fire. Smells faintly of gun oil, coffee, and melancholy. Carries a rusty knife, a can of beans, and a 1,000-yard stare. People will see you and think, that man has nothing to lose. That, my friend, is the safest look you can have. Because here's the truth. In the Wild West, nobody respects clean. Clean is suspicious. Clean means you're either naive, rich, or both. And nothing motivates a desperate man with a bad attitude faster than the scent of easy money and lavender soap. So the next time you think about putting on something nice for your desert adventure, ask yourself one question: do I want to be buried in this? Because if your outfit says, fresh start, the West hears fresh meat. Dust yourself up, rip your shirt, scuff your boots, and for the love of survival, never ever tuck in your damn shirt. Bragging gets you buried faster than a fever out in the Wild West, where the air is dry, the tempers are shorter than the life expectancy, and your closest friend might be the buzzard circling above. There exists one golden rule: shut your mouth. Not all the time, just when you're tempted to run it. Because while bullets may travel fast, loose lips in cowboy country move even quicker. Straight to the grave, let's start with a basic truth. No one in the Wild West gives a rattlesnake's tail how many men you've killed, how many poker games you've won, or how many mountain lions you've allegedly stared down with nothing but a harmonica and a bad attitude. In fact, the more you talk about your greatness, the more likely someone in the room is quietly measuring the distance from their holster to your spleen. You see, bragging out here isn't impressive. It's provocative. And not in the seductive look at me, I'm dangerous way, but in the look at me, I'm begging to be tested way. Every saloon in every dusty one-horse town has at least one guy just itching for a reason to knock you off your high horse, even if you've only ever ridden a stubborn donkey named Beans. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you swagger into a saloon, hat tilted, boots loud, smile crooked. You toss a coin to the bartender and say, "Best keep the whiskey flowing. I once outdrank a Cherokee chief and beat 3 bounty hunters in a knife fight before breakfast." Do you know what happens next? Nothing good. The piano stops. The room goes silent. And someone in the corner quietly mutters, "Prove it. Now you're in a situation." Because out here, confidence isn't a strength. It's bait. And you've just chummed the waters in a shark tank full of angry men with itchy trigger fingers and nothing better to do. The men who survive out here, they say less, a lot less. If someone asks if they're any good with a gun, they shrug and say, "I get by." If someone asks if they've ever been in a shootout, they respond with a soft, "Not lately." The trick is to sound boring, forgettable, like the kind of guy who blends into the wallpaper and definitely doesn't have a bounty on his head in 3 counties. Because in the Wild West, the minute people start remembering your name, they also start wondering what it would take to erase it. Let's take a moment to talk about a legendary figure, Quiet Caleb. Never heard of him? Exactly. That's the point. Caleb was known across 3 territories for surviving 6 ambushes, 2 jailbreaks, and 1 knife fight that took place entirely in a rain barrel. But ask him about it and he'd just smile, sip his whiskey, and say, "That wasn't me." Meanwhile, every braggart who walked into a saloon swinging his reputation like a dead possum on a stick ended up face down in the street, leaking confidence and regret. See, talking big is like wearing a neon vest in a thunderstorm. Sure, you'll be noticed, but only long enough to get struck. Now let's talk about staring. Because if bragging is the appetizer to violence, staring is the main course. In the Wild West, eye contact is not a form of polite engagement. It's a challenge, a dare, a silent way of saying, "I hope your will's up to date." Don't stare at the sheriff unless you're in a hurry to get deputized into a pine box. Don't stare at the outlaw with the twitchy hand and a face that looks like it lost a fight with a branding iron. And under no circumstances should you ever stare at the guy sitting alone in the corner, sipping his drink like it's his last and carving something mysterious into the bar with a rusty fork. That man has stories you don't want to be part of. The only thing you're allowed to stare at is your drink, and even that has its risks. In this dusty corner of hell, drinks have been known to bubble, crawl, and once, in Arizona, scream. If your drink moves, blink once, slide it away, and order something less ambitious. So what happens if someone tries to drag your story out of you? Maybe a talkative rancher wants to know where you're from. Maybe a too friendly barkeep says you look like the kind of man who's seen things. What do? You lie. Softly, gently. You tell them you're from East, which could mean Boston, Georgia, or the edge of a nervous breakdown. You say you used to work cattle, which is vague enough to pass. You offer up just enough detail to fill the silence, but never enough to be interesting. Because out here, interesting people are like loaded dice, fun until someone figures out the trick. And don't think you can get away with boasting just because you're drunk. In fact, that's when most men die. Alcohol and ego make a deadly mix. One minute you're toasting to your great-grandpappy who single-handedly held off a Sioux War party with a shovel and a harmonica, and the next minute someone's challenging you to a duel in the street, while still holding their soup spoon. The West doesn't care about your bloodline. It doesn't care about your medals, your mustache, or your melodrama. The only thing it respects is silence, suspicion, and the ability to leave a room without anyone realizing you were ever in it. Let me tell you about a man named Billy the Bragg Townsend. Billy walked into a saloon wearing a gold vest, a silver belt buckle the size of a dinner plate, and a mouth that moved faster than his brain. He claimed to have robbed 12 banks, kissed 30 widows, and taught Jesse James how to ride a horse. By sundown, Billy had challenged 3 men to a gunfight and was last seen crawling toward the outhouse with a bullet in his pride. The lesson? If your legend walks into town before you do, make sure it's wearing a bulletproof vest. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I am tough. I've survived things. I've earned my swagger. And that's great. But the Wild West doesn't care. You know what it rewards? Mystery. People fear what they don't understand. So give them nothing. Want to be respected? Be vague. Want to be feared? Be quiet. Want to be remembered? Don't. Live long enough to confuse the historians. Because out here, every word is a gamble. Every tale is a trap. And every braggart is just a corpse with a catchphrase. So zip the lips. Lower the eyes. Walk like your boots are heavy with regret. And if anyone asks how good you are with a gun, just say, I miss sometimes. Because out here, humility isn't a virtue. It's armor. And the man who speaks softly, he's usually the last one left standing. Don't flirt with the horse in most civilized parts of the world. A man can make polite eye contact with a stranger's dog, compliment a well-groomed beard, or nod appreciatively at someone's vehicle without triggering a duel. But the Wild West is not most places. Out here, a sideways glance can be a death wish, and saying the wrong thing about the wrong horse might get you buried behind the saloon with your boots still on and a cactus for a headstone. Let's start with horses. In the West, horses are not just animals. They're companions, confidants, status symbols, and, in many cases, the most intelligent member of the household. For a cowboy, his horse is his ride or die, literally. It's the thing that's carried him through dust storms, shootouts, and heartbreak. Seen him naked, drunk, and sobbing. The bond between a man and his horse is sacred. So naturally, if you walk up to that horse with twinkly eyes and outstretched hands like you're about to pet a golden retriever in a tea garden, you've already made 2 fatal assumptions. 1, that the horse won't bite you, and 2, that the owner won't shoot you for trying. Do not, under any circumstances, touch, compliment, or God forbid, wink at another man's horse. You think I'm joking? One guy once complimented a stallion's tail braid, and the next thing anyone knew, his hat had a brand new ventilation hole and his body had an urgent appointment with the undertaker. You see, in the frontier social hierarchy, a man's horse ranks just below his revolver and just above his mother. That's not hyperbole. That's priority. If you pat his horse without asking, he might assume you're either a threat or romantically confused. Either way, it ends badly. Now, let's expand that rule a bit because it applies far beyond horses. In the West, What you choose to acknowledge publicly says everything about who you are and whether you want to survive until payday. Complimenting someone's boots may be acceptable if you phrase it like, "Those look like they've kicked a few skulls in." Complimenting their shirt? Suspicious. Too soft. Might as well ask them their favorite flower while you're at it. And then there's the disaster scenario, making small talk. Small talk in the West is dangerous, especially if it veers into compliment territory. If you're at a bar and you're tempted to say something like, "That's a mighty fine horse out there," just know you've entered the conversational equivalent of walking across a minefield in tap shoes. There are safe phrases, of course. Veteran-approved greetings like, "Hot today," "Decent beans," "Seen any trouble on the road?" These are neutral, unassuming, and unlikely to get you stabbed. But the moment you start talking about someone's ride, their weapon, or their general vibe, you're risking your life. Let's go back to horses for a second. Because honestly, it's not even about the horse. It's about what the horse represents. That animal is the cowboy's freedom, his history, and his getaway plan. It's his therapist, his roommate, and his escape vehicle all wrapped into one. You don't flirt with someone's exit strategy. Let me tell you about a fella named Lucky Jim. Spoiler, the nickname was ironic. Jim was new in town. Clean hat, shiny boots, full set of teeth. He stuck out like a choir boy at a poker table. One evening, he walked up to a tall black stallion tied outside the saloon and said, and I quote, "Well, aren't you a handsome fella?" Now, the horse didn't flinch, but the owner did. A second later, Jim was on the ground holding his cheek and wondering why it hurt to blink. The stallion, to his credit, seemed embarrassed by the whole affair. The truth is, out here everyone's watching. Every word you say is being measured. Every gesture you make is being interpreted like ancient scripture. So if your hands start reaching toward a stranger's horse, someone's already reaching for a weapon. Here's what you do instead. You walk past the horse like it doesn't exist. Not because you don't appreciate it, but because you do. Respect is shown through restraint. A nod to the rider is fine. A glance at the horse? Risky. Anything more? Funeral time. And don't think this is limited to animals. The same rules apply to people, especially the quiet ones in the saloon. There's always one. Sitting alone, hat low, drink untouched, staring into the middle distance like he's counting how many souls he's already sent west. Do not engage. Do not comment on his hat, boots, or the suspicious stain on his coat. That man has seen things, and he doesn't need your curiosity poking at his trauma like a stick in a snake pit. Let's also talk about the instinct, common among city folks, to smile at everything. You might think you're being friendly, but in the West, smiling too much makes you look like either an idiot or a con artist. Either way, people will assume you're up to something. Reserve your smiles. Treat them like bullets. Rare, expensive, and only used when absolutely necessary. There's a reason the most respected man in any Western town is the one nobody knows much about. The one who walks into the saloon, orders a drink in silence, and leaves before anyone even gets a good look at his face. That man isn't friendly. He's smart. But maybe you're a talker. Maybe you think, well, I've got the charm. I can talk my way out of anything. No, you can't. Not out here. Out here, charm is considered witchcraft. People don't trust it. If your words come too smooth, someone's gonna assume you're running a con or planning a robbery. Or worse, Selling insurance. So what do you do when you find yourself in a social situation and someone's horse is standing right there, majestic, shimmering in the golden light, begging to be admired? You look down, you say, "Nice weather." You order your drink, keep your hands to yourself, and pray to every deity that no one thinks you're interesting. And whatever you do not try to bond with the horse. Don't whistle at it. Don't feed it. Don't say, "Nice hooves." Just don't. Because in the Wild West, respect isn't shown through words or compliments. It's shown through distance, through silence, through the humble act of not dying over something stupid. So walk softly, speak rarely, and if you must say something, say it to your drink. Because in these parts, a misplaced word can get you shot. But a misplaced glance, that'll get you buried. Pick the right town or pick a coffin. In most parts of the world, choosing a place to settle down involves a checklist. Schools, job opportunities, maybe whether the bakery does good pie. In the Wild West, the checklist is a little different. It's more along the lines of 1. How many fresh graves are in the town square? 2. Are the vultures flying above the saloon or the sheriff's office? And 3. Can you walk from the jail to the undertaker in under 30 seconds? If the answer to that last one is yes, ride on. Fast. Because in the Wild West, picking the wrong town isn't just inconvenient. It's how your bones end up being used as firewood in the back of someone's tavern. Towns out here aren't labeled safe or dangerous. They're labeled boring enough to survive or currently on fire. Let's start with the obvious red flags. If a town sign uses the word lively, that's code for people here die before lunch. The more enthusiastic the welcome, the more likely someone's getting shot before the dust settles on your boots. A good sign is half broken, hanging off one chain, and doesn't even spell the name right. That means no one's bothered to fix it, and that laziness might just save your life. Now take a look around. If the first thing you see is a saloon with boarded windows, a church with scorch marks, and a brothel bigger than the general store, congratulations. You've arrived in what they call a boom town. Sounds exciting, right? Wrong. Boom towns are where morals go to die and lawmen go to bleed out. Boom towns sprout up like weeds every time someone sneezes near gold or hears a rumor about silver in the hills. The population doubles every week, the crime triples every hour, and by the time you finish your drink, someone's already plotting to rob the place you slept in last night. This capitalism on whiskey and cocaine. You might make a fortune, sure, but only if you survive long enough to remember where you buried it. Let's say you're an optimist, and you walk into a town called Prosperity Gulch. That sounds nice, doesn't it? Like a place with hope. That's the trap. The more hopeful the name, the more hopeless the reality. Any town with hope, silver, fortune, or sunrise in the name is probably full of con men, shallow graves, and the kind of stew that screams missing person with every bite. So, what are you looking for instead? Boredom. Absolute, dry, soul-crushing boredom. You want a town where the most exciting thing that happens in a week is a goat getting stuck in a fence. You want people too tired to cause trouble and too dusty to chase you if you do. If the local sheriff is asleep on the porch, the preacher's drunk, and the barber only does one haircut, you might just live past Thursday. Another pro tip: look at the rooftops. Bullet holes are normal, this is the West. But if there's blood on the shingles or a hat nailed to the church door, that's your sign to turn around. You don't want to be part of whatever story that hat was in. Trust me. And let's talk about welcome committees. In normal towns, a welcome committee might be the mayor, the baker, or a smiling old lady with a pie. In the Wild West, it's usually a buzzard perched on a fence post next to a boot that still has a foot in it. If that's what greets you, nod respectfully and keep moving. But maybe you're thinking, I don't want boring. I want opportunity. Fine. Welcome to the land of bad decisions and great headlines. Head to the gold rush towns, the railroad crossings, the river ports where every man's got a gun and no one's got a name. You'll find fortune or a bullet with your initials on it. Probably both. You'll meet folks who gamble everything on the turn of a card or the glint of a rock in a stream. Some of them make it, most don't, and those who do, they don't hang around. They ride off fast, pockets full, looking over their shoulders. Because everyone in a boomtown remembers who got rich, and they all think you don't deserve it. So maybe, after watching 3 fistfights and a stabbing, you decide you want something more stable. You ride into a town with a church, a schoolhouse, and even a mayor. Looks civilized. There's a kid flying a kite, a woman hanging laundry, and a dog that hasn't bitten anyone. Yet, you think, finally, I've made it. But let me warn you, behind every cute little town is a hellstorm waiting for the right breeze. Because here's what you'll find. The mayor, drunk by noon and in debt to the saloon. The sheriff, shot twice this week, limping and on his 3rd badge. The preacher also runs the poker table on Saturdays. The schoolteacher has a 6-shooter in her drawer and a bounty on her XUC. In the Wild West, the paint is always fresh, but the rot runs deep. You might find a town with clean streets and smiling faces, but dig just a little, and you'll find vendettas, grudges, and at least one guy who's got a map to buried treasure and an ex-wife who wants him dead. Want to test a town? Walk into the general store. Look around. If you see coffins stacked next to the canned beans, get out. If the apothecary sells whiskey, bandages, and rope as a 3-for-1 special, keep riding. If the post office has more wanted posters than mail, congratulations, you're in Purgatory Junction. And always, always listen to the silence. If you walk into a saloon and the piano stops playing the moment you enter, don't ask questions. Don't order a drink. Don't even exhale. Turn around, tip your hat to no one in particular, and leave. That kind of silence means someone thinks you look like trouble. Or worse, like someone they used to know and didn't like. Remember, the Wild West doesn't reward boldness. It rewards caution. Reputation gets you killed. Anonymity gets you a refill. If you're smart, you'll aim for a place so forgettable the mapmakers didn't bother naming it. A town with no legends, no dramas, no grave markers with recent dates. A town where people mind their own business and expect you to do the same. That's not just survival. That's strategy in the end. The perfect town isn't the one with gold in the river or a bustling main street. It's the one where no one notices when you arrive and no one remembers when you leave, a place with dust in the air, silence in the saloon, and a sheriff who only draws his gun for snakes and squirrels. A place where the biggest drama is a missing cow. That, my friend, is where you want to be. Because out here, peace doesn't come with a picket fence, it comes with anonymity, dust, and just enough boredom to keep your pulse steady. So pick your town wisely. Because in the West, you don't just move in. You gamble your life on the neighborhood. Sleep is just a fancy word for please rob me. Let's get something straight right from the start. In the Wild West, sleep is not a luxury. It's not rest. It's not even a break. It's a calculated risk with terrible odds. You may think after a long day of riding, dodging bullets, and drinking coffee that tastes like melted iron filings, you've earned a good night's sleep. That's adorable. Out here, sleep is just an 8-hour audition to see if someone wants your boots, your horse, or your life. The West doesn't care how tired you are. It doesn't care if you rode 50 miles through rattlesnake country with a busted saddle and a coyote chewing on your conscience. The second you close both eyes at the same time, you've basically issued an open invitation that says, "Dear fate, please come mess me up. Let's walk through your options, shall we?" Option 1, the saloon floor. Now, technically, this is the most popular method of sleep in the frontier. Why? Because it's flat, indoors, usually, and within crawling distance of whiskey. But don't let that fool you into thinking it's safe. The saloon floor has seen things. It has absorbed blood, vomit, tears, and the occasional tooth since Lincoln was still learning to grow a beard. You won't be alone either. Expect at least 3 unconscious men, 1 suspiciously quiet dog, and possibly a chicken that thinks your hair is nesting material. There is no pillow. There is no privacy. And there is a non-zero chance you'll wake up with someone else's boot print on your face and a mysterious playing card stuck to your cheek. It's also worth noting that many saloon brawls start at breakfast, so if you're still lying down when the chairs start flying, you might become the furniture. Option 2. A boarding house cot at a yes, the upscale option. A cot, for walls, maybe a ceiling. You're indoors. What luxury! Except the walls are made of paper, the ceiling leaks, and the bed was last cleaned during the Mexican-American War. You'll pay 2 bits for the privilege of sharing air with a man who snores like a dying buffalo and a woman who swears she used to sing opera until the incident. Now, technically, there's a lock on the door. But the thing about Wild West locks is that they're more ceremonial than functional, like a wedding ring on a con artist. If someone wants in, they're getting in. And if someone knocks, it's not to borrow sugar. It's to borrow your life expectancy. You'll try to rest. But every creak of the floorboard sounds like a gunslinger sneaking up to teach you a permanent lesson. And even if you survive the night, you'll wake up with more bedbug bites than memories and the distinct feeling that you've aged 10 years in your sleep. Option 3. The great outdoors. Nature. Trees, stars, fresh air, and all the death traps you can fit between 2 cacti. Sleeping outside in the Wild West is like announcing, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've brought snacks." Coyotes? Yes. Bandits? Definitely. Sudden rainstorms? Like clockwork. And don't forget scorpions, snakes, and one-eyed raccoons with unresolved trauma. It's the kind of environment where even the moon looks down and thinks, "Are you sure about this?" If you do choose to sleep outside, you'll quickly learn the ancient art of nervous raccoon napping. One eye open, one hand on your gun, and your back never facing a wall, tree, or rock large enough to conceal betrayal. You want to sleep under the stars? You better be ready to jump out of your blanket like it's a cannonball and you're the fuse. You might think, "I'll just find a nice spot behind a barrel." Excellent plan. Until the barrel turns out to be full of gunpowder, or whiskey, or someone else, or all 3. You might also think, "The saddle will make a decent pillow." It won't. You'll wake up with a neck like a question mark and a spine that sounds like an old porch swing. And don't, under any circumstance, sleep near your campfire. Yes, it's warm. Yes, it keeps the animals away. But it also attracts every drifter, outlaw, and ghost with unfinished business within a 20-mile radius. Plus, if the fire's too bright, they'll spot you like a blinking neon sign that says, "Stab here for loot." Pro tip: if you hear someone whisper your name in the dark, don't answer. It's either A, a ghost, B, a hallucination, C, a man named Lenny trying to sell you cursed land for $5 and a bottle of regret. No matter which option it is, you're better off pretending you don't exist. But let's say you do fall asleep. Let's say, miraculously, your body gives out and your brain decides to take a 10-minute vacation. Great. Now what? Well, you nap aggressively. Not delicately. Not peacefully. Aggressively. You nap like you're stealing time from the Reaper himself. 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Behind a haystack, under a wagon, inside a church pew during a very forgiving sermon. The goal isn't comfort. The goal is not dying while horizontal. Sometimes the best sleep you'll get is while slumped in the saddle, letting your horse find the path. And even then, it's a gamble. If your horse gets spooked or decides to follow a squirrel, you'll wake up in a creek, or worse, in someone's backyard, being judged by chickens. Option 4. Jail cell nap. Don't laugh. Sometimes the safest place in town is a jail cell, especially if the sheriff is passed out drunk and the only other occupant is a man named Toothless Frank who just wants to tell you about his pet lizard named General Sherman. Jail cells have walls, sometimes beds, and the bars, oddly enough, keep the trouble out instead of keeping you in. If you're not technically under arrest, just tell the sheriff you're protecting the town from dreams. He probably won't argue. But even in jail, keep one eye open. Just because someone's behind bars doesn't mean they're not creative with a spoon and an attitude. Bottom line? Sleep kills. In the Wild West, staying awake is survival. And sleeping is a performance art called pretending everything's fine while praying no one stabs you with a fork. It's a nightly gamble with odds only slightly better than Russian roulette with a 6-shooter and 5 bullets. And if you're the type who needs a full 8 hours to function, allow me to introduce you to reality. Out here, the only ones who sleep that long are corpses and sheriffs with really good mustaches. So what's the solution? Nap like a raccoon on caffeine. Sleep in bursts. Trust no surface. And always, always, sleep with one boot on and your gun within arm's reach. Because in the Wild West, dreams are free. But waking up, that's extra.